What's up, you guys? I'm coming at you here with a new deck profile, and today we're going to be looking at Magical Musketeers. Now, this is a relatively new archetype, new to today's meta. It's not really making a competitive scene, but I enjoy how the deck plays, and I really like its hand trap based play. It's column based play. It's something new, something completely fresh. So I decided to take it upon myself to try the deck out, give my take on it, and this is my build. So remember, you're always free to use the cards you like to play. You can make any tech choices of your own. I personally don't play Ash Blossom because I feel it doesn't speed up the deck in any way, although it does halter your opponent. Some plays, I believe the bullets themselves do that job already pretty good. So let's look into the card choices, starting off with the monsters. So starting off with the monsters, I like to play 3 Magical Musketeer Caspar, 3 Magical Musketeer Starfire, 3 Magical Musketeer Kid Brave, 2 Magical Musketeer Doc, 1 Magical Musketeer Wild, and 1 Magical Musketeer Calamities. And for the hand trap portion of the deck, I like to play 2 Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit and 1 Maxi for a total lineup of 16 monsters, so only 13 Magical Musketeer monsters. Starting off with Caspar, the reason he's important is because he's the main card of the deck. He's the main searcher. He can search any Magical Musket card as long as the spell or trap is activated in the same column. So if your opponent activates a spell in his column, like in his row, you could activate, you can chain his effect activates and you can search any Magical Musket card, monsters, or spells or traps. Most of the time you will be going for the spell or trap that you don't have. Starfire, and her importance is the same thing. Her effect triggers when a spell is activated in her column, and what she does is she special summons a Magical Musket level 4 or lower in defense position. So you could, most of the time what you'll find yourself doing is, if you use Starfire's effect, if it is activated, you'll probably go into Caspar if you don't already have one on the field. So her importance is because she can basically search all of them. One thing to notice here is that Caspar's defense is 2000, she is 1700. Most of them have pretty low stats, so summoning in defense kind of helps them out, so you don't take that much damage. That's just something to keep in mind. Most of the time that you use Starfire's effect, you will be going into Caspar. Next, Magical Musketeer Kid Brave, and now his importance in the deck is very obvious because it gives you draw power. It feeds the graveyard with Magical Musket cards, giving you the ability to keep digging into your deck. Now, if you've noticed, this deck does search a lot. So the importance of Kid Brave is very obvious in the fact that it lets you search deeper into the deck by discarding Magical Musketeers. Now his effect goes hand in hand with Magical Musketeer Doc, because when a spell or trap is activated under his effect, in his column, he activates, letting you get a Magical Musket card from your graveyard to your hand. So Kid Brave and Doc kind of go well together, because you can pitch one off him, and then you can, one that you drew, you can activate under Doc and search the one you pitched, giving you a number of bullets you can keep using. So Magical Musketeer Doc's importance is pretty obvious, as it recycles from the graveyard. Now Wild, he's one of the most useless ones, I'd say, but he is a Ties of the Brethren target, and he does have the best stats out of all of them. He has 1700 attack, 900 defense, making him a pretty respectable stat line in comparison to Caspar, which is sitting at 1200, Starfire 13, Kid Brave for level 3 at 16 is pretty respectable, Doc at 14. So Magical Musketeer Wild is a pretty good rank. It's a pretty good level 4, which is a Ties of the Brethren target, so you can use on Starfire. And finally, Calamities. Now what she does is, when you activate a spell or trap in her column, she lets you special summon a Magical Musket card from your grave. Now most of the time I really don't find myself using Kid Brave and her together. She's most of the time just, if I have Ties of the Brethren and Starfire, I'll use Ties of the Brethren on Starfire, summon these two, and just continue my plays from there. Now the importance of having multiple Magical Musketeers on the field is that this deck loses very hard to Kaijus. Being Kaiju'd, if you only have one Caspar or one Wild or one Doc, you instantly lose because all the cards in your hand become useless. So the importance of having multiple on the field is, if they Kaiju you can continue using your spells and traps from hand. So that's how they obviously work together. Now let's take a look into the spell and trap lineup. Now for the spell part of the deck, I like to play 2 Ties of the Brethren, 1 Double Summon, 2 Pot of Duality, the Toon package, which revolves 1 Toon World and 3 Toon Table of Contents, 1 Upstart Goblin, 1 Dark Hole, 1 Regeki, 3 Magical Musketeer Cross Domination, and 3 Magical Musketeer Steady Hands. Now the reason I like to play it at these ratios is, I play Ties of the Brethren at 2, because I found most of the time when I was playing, so if you guys can see, it's 17 spells. So that's a pretty extensive number of spells. Half of the time when you build a deck, you want to play half and half. So 20 monsters, 20 spells and traps total. But this deck requires you to play 17 spells at least, or 15. The number of spells has to be high to trigger the Magical Musketeer's effects. Now I play Ties of the Brethren at 2 because I don't want to draw it if I don't have targets, and most of the times if you draw 1 Starfire and 1 Calamities and you have this, you can't even use it because you only have 1 wild in the deck. So I find it good at 2, and because I can use Ties of the Brethren and double summon at the same time. I'd run it at 2 and 2, but I found this ratio to be absolutely perfect for my playstyle. So 2 Ties of the Brethren, if you guys don't know what it does, you pay 2,000 life points, and it lets you special summon monsters from the deck, pretty much that are the same attribute and level. So if you summon Caspar, you can go into Kid Brave in the dock. So that's pretty good. The only thing is that it does kind of fall, you can Ash it, and you pretty much have to pay cost, which is pretty fine as long as it's not like a Hero Lives where you have to pay half your life points. 2,000 is pretty respectable. It's a good amount to pay, and having the Musketeers on the field is as board presence with cards in hand makes it pretty scary to play against. 1 double summon because, like I said, you could activate it if you draw into Ties of the Brethren, and it just triggers their effect even if you have nothing in hand. 2 Pot of Dualities because, like I said again, you play a very small monster lineup, or if you have a monster and you happen to draw this, it can trigger their effect, and you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck and choose which one can help you out more. So for example, most of the time I find myself using Caspar and Duality. I'll look at the top 3. If one of the Musket cards are in there, I'll just draw it, then use Caspar's effect triggers, and I get another Magical Musket card giving me more hand traps in hand basically. Now the Toon package revolves around 3 Toon Table of Contents and 1 Toon World. So what this basically does is you could activate 1 Toon Table of Contents under a Musketeer, trigger his effect, and pretty much gain his effect, and search yourself another Toon Table of Contents, giving you another effect to trigger later. So if you have multiple muskets on the field and you draw into 1 Toon Table of Contents, you can trigger most of their effects. Now Toon World is unfortunate that it is a Garnet, but what I do, which is like it's basically a Garnet for the deck, what I do for this one is I'll use it under Kid Brave or under Starfire, because you can trigger their effects. You'll play multiple of those, so you can trigger their effects by drawing them later in the game. So that's fine. I'll use Toon World under Kid Brave or Starfire. Now Upstart Goblin again because it does trigger their effects, and it basically gives you a +1. I mean, it basically gives you a draw. And Darklorn Rieki because board wipes are very important. Now 2 Steady Hands for the reason that again it triggers their effects for going first, so you can trigger Starfire's effect just by activating this under it. And second, like I said, their stats are relatively low, so doubling their attack is pretty important because Caspar would be at a respectable 2400, Starfire at a 26, the Kid Brave is at a 32, the Doc would be at 28, and my favorite Wild would be at a respectable 34. Now Magical Musketeer Cross Domination negates the monster effects and lowers his attack to 0, so you could activate it during damage calc and lower basically against my Spiral matchup, which isn't too hard to go against the deck if going first. You can lower the sleepers during the main phase 1 or during the damage calc, your choice. So that's why cross domination is important. Now let's go into the trap lineup, which is a little smaller, but is very, very powerful for this deck. So let's go into it. Now for the trap part of the deck, I like to play 3 Magical Musket Last Stand, 3 Magical Musket Desperado, and 3 Magical Musket Fiendish Deal. Now what Last Stand does, it's a counter trap that if you have a Magical Musket on the field, you can negate a spell or trap. Most of the time I find myself negating something like Solemn Strike once I trigger the effect of a Magical Musket, which is very useful because it keeps your board present and it keeps the ability to use your spells and traps from your hand. I also really enjoy negating Pot of Desires, it's just so awesome. Next, Magical Musket Desperado is if you have a Magical Musket on the field, you could activate it from hand and destroy a face-up card on the field. Now, most Magical Musket players I've played against don't read the card, and they believe it says destroy any card on the field. I destroy a card on the field, so I've had that problem. It's just face-up card on the field, so if you guys are planning to play this deck, remember, Desperado can destroy any face-up card on the field, so destroying field spells is very important. If you choose to save Magical Musket Last Stand for like a board wipe or something, so that's that. Magical Musket Fiendish Deal is one of my favorite cards because it's unfortunate, although it's a continuous, it does give your Magical Muskets protection from card effects, so choosing which to play is very important. You know, if you negate a Regeki or a Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, would happen most of the time, it's important to know that you could chain this and just protect your Magical Muskets instead. So if you have both in hand and a board wipe, I'd go with this first because, you know, it protects them from card effects, and if they destroy it, which, you know, if it gets into the grave, you get to draw 1 card. So that's pretty good for drawing power. But what I found most of the times doing with Magical Musket Fiendish Deal is I'll search it. If I have Dark Hole in hand, I'll use it, I'll play it, then I'll activate Dark Hole, blowing my opponent's field, so it's like a second Regeki, and you know, keeping your board present. So that's the importance of the trap lineup. Now, why I don't opt to play Solemn Strikes or the Solemn Warnings is because I like the quick play style Magical Muskets have. I don't like that you can set a Solemn Strike, they can MST it or Twin Twister or Cosmic Cyclone, who knows, during your end phase, or I mean during their standby phase, and it just completely ruins it. I see a lot of people maining Cosmic Cyclone now, so I feel like playing these cards and like no field spells, it just puts them at a disadvantage having those cards in their hand. So that's why I opt to not play Solemn Strike. If you guys have any recommendations on how to play with Solemn Strikes, I'd be more than happy to hear about it. Leave it down in the comment sections. I did read the comments below, so thank you for that. So now let's look at the extra deck. Now for the extra deck, I like to play one Gaga Cowboy because he does fit in with the, you know, with the archetype of the deck. Even though he's in a Magical Musket, I just like the fact that he's kind of like a cowboy slash musketeer. Plus, he burns your opponent for 1800, and he's basically a 2500 beater if summoned in attack, and lowers your opponent's monster by 500. Now next, Utopia the Lightning, and his importance in this deck is because you can make rank 4s, and he's one of the strongest monsters in this deck can make, and he does some pretty heavy effect damage because most of the time you can't do much battle damage with them. You rely on using your card advantage or using your cards to counter their cards, giving you more cards. So Utopia the Lightning is incredibly powerful for this deck because you can make him relatively easily, and when he attacks, cards can be activated, and he could becomes 5000, so he deals some major damage. So on the topic of major damage, I like to play number 30 Acid Golem of Destruction because he's a rank 3. Although he does have the setback of having to detach, and if you can't detach, you have to pay 2000 life points, and you can special summon once you summon him. He gets rid of problematic boss monsters. I found myself even popping him later in the game to prevent myself from paying 2000, triggering my Musket's effect. So I've got over monsters like Masterpiece, the Heavenly Monarch, and the Dark World Monarch. So he's relatively strong. Next is Baguska because Baguska saves games. To be honest, it stalls for time if your opponent doesn't have an out to Baguska. So that's just his importance. And you can just switch him to attack when you have enough field presence and just pretty much go ham. Next, and the important thing about Baguska is because their activated effects are negated. So the fact that they can activate spells and traps from hand is a continuous effect, so they basically can't be negated. Next is Dark Rebellion XYZ Dragon because again, he's relatively strong if you target an opponent's monster and take that half attack. Castell because again, he falls under the Musketeer type archetype, and he just gets rid of problematic monsters you may be having trouble with. The Phantom Knights of Breaksword because you can target himself and pop a card on the field, which again is relatively fine. I've popped Fiendish Deal and one of my opponent's monsters, and just pretty much keep the Phantom Knight on the field. So that's basically everything for the extra deck. Now I don't play more extra deck monsters because I don't really find myself going into them. The only ones I kind of do go into is if I'm having a hard time with an opponent, like Pendulum Magicians, I'll go into Baguska. If I'm playing like a stronger deck, like I found myself playing against Blue Eyes, I don't play Honest, but I'll go into like Utopia the Lightning or number 30 the Golem, or maybe XYZ Dragon, but I find myself using Utopia the Lightning for this deck most of the time. So that's basically for the extra deck. You guys can include any cards you feel would be good. I'd love to read if you guys have any recommendations down in the comment section below, so leave that below. So thank you guys for watching, I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think of the deck profile in the comment section down below. Leave a like, comment, or subscribe. You know, join the channel. We're a relatively new channel, trying to, you know, get some new subscribers, get as many views as we can. So if there's any deck profiles you guys would like to see, I'd be more than happy to give them a look at myself and give them my own opinion on. So thank you guys for that. Again, leave a like, comment, subscribe. See you guys next time. Sesma is out. So before I forget, I want to give a quick shout out to Josh the Nerd for commenting in my Mass Heroes versus Six Samurai video. Thank you for the ruling, man. I really appreciate it. The Utopia the Lightning and Shein problem we were having, Shein Squire problem we were having, you really helped us solve that for future occasions and just for that video. So thank you for commenting, man. I really appreciate it. You are awesome. Josh the Nerd, thank you, man. Thank you for being subscribed to the channel. Thank you for watching our videos. So until next time, guys, Happy New Year's. Sesma is out. See you guys in 2018.